It's Jefferson, climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the UFC MMA Run Pure Sports Show, talking UFC 291, big pay-per-view here on Saturday, July 29th, breaking down all 11 fights for you guys from a DFS and betting perspective. We got the whole crew back today. I'm, of course, Draft Sheet live from actually Mom's basement for this show, and joined by, of course, the three regular members of the show. We've got Mad Lab, we've got Red Kachueira, Drew, and we've got JSU. Let's throw it over to you, Mad Lab. I was absent from the show last week. How did the fight night go, and what do you think of this card tonight?
It was good. I mean, the card was good overall. We had one major blip in the radar, and JSU had to throw it into my face early this fucking morning. Is Muniz, man. I was not expecting him to lose that fight, but he's dead to me. So you guys can guarantee I will never pick him again in a spot on a card. But this card's going to be fun. A lot of good spots. I like the small sample size cards where there's not like there's 10 to 11 fights. Gives you more room to work and kind of narrow things down. But I'm excited. Then you got Spencer Crawford too. It's going to be a great night.
The classic the classic DFS move of a guy screws you over 1 week and you just write him off for the rest of his career, JSU. You can't do that in baseball.
Twice. He's done it twice.
But in MMA, maybe a little bit more viable of a strategy. We've got a couple washed up fighters, I think, on this fight that we'll talk about. Maybe you could do that with. But let's throw it over to you, JSU. How you doing on this Saturday morning?
That's the unpredictability of MMA, and that's why it's so hard, but it's so fun at the same time. You watch a fighter, one fight, and you're like, oh, man, this dude, he's got nothing. He looks awful. So then you take that to the next fight, and he's going up against a guy that's really good too, and you're like, oh, he's going to get destroyed, and he looks better. It's like, and that guy looks worse than his last. Like, it's just the whole thing, so it's what makes MMA fun, and I was really happy, obviously, that Paul Craig did win, just because I did want to have some fun with Mad Lab before the show and on the show. So I had my fun. I was pretty bummed that Feely couldn't get it done for us. Overall, that was like one of the better fights on the card, just with the way that fight went. That fight was awesome. I thought in the third round, he kind of screwed himself too. He just didn't win the volume match in the third round. I don't know, a little exhausted, obviously. It was a hard fight with Wood. That was the one thing that got me, because I had a ton of Feely in all my lineups, and he was live. I mean, I don't know what more you can ask from a dog. I mean, knocks the dude down twice, has two different chances to finish him. He gets knocked down twice. He almost got finished twice. Like, it was just a really fun exchange. So good fights overall, but we're on to this week. And
what about you? Were sweating your balls off with my boy Diakese? I'll tell you that.
I was actually sweating my balls off with Diakese a little bit too. You're right.
All right, let's go back over to Drew Red Kachueira. How you doing on this Saturday, Drew?
Yeah, doing good. Been looking forward to this show all week. Good show last week. And it was kind of nice to refresh the fights and have about 4 less fights than we had last week. It's man, those big cards are tough. I'm sure Mad Lab can attest, going through every single fight. So yeah, looking forward to this card. It's actually pretty good. A lot of finishing upside, so should be fun. And there's not as many fighters to pick from. So Optimal is probably pretty live. It was not live last week.
Yeah, absolutely. We got, of course, a lively chat going on already. I am indeed okay down here in the basement. Don't need to be rescued quite yet. So yeah, we'll keep it.
By the way, DC, you kind of took off a good card for yourself last week. There were some tough names I was really struggling with. You got a softball in this card with the names on this.
Yeah,
card.
Drew. Drew had the cake though. What did you call it?
Aspinall or something.
Aspinall.
Yeah.
Aspinall. Yeah.
That was probably the easiest one.
Sounds like a fucking
I had to fake being sick for a whole week to avoid the tough names on last week's card. So yeah,
it was like a 2-hour show just because we couldn't figure out the names, and Matt Lab just laughed at us.
And lightning struck, and my whole house went out of power for 30
Bad
seconds.
Sounds like a good one. Hopefully this one goes a little bit more smoothly. With that, let's jump into these fights. Like I mentioned before, only 11 fights on this pay-per-view card, which is, I think, pretty rare for obviously we had a couple cancellations, including Wonderboy Thompson last night due to the weight cut. But we still do have 11 fights to talk about. We start out with a pretty decent favorite in the women's division, Miranda Maverick, sitting around minus 300 or just shy of that on some sites over Priscilla Cachueira. Kind of I think a battle of styles here, Mad Lab. Obviously, Maverick with the grappling. Cachueira certainly prefers to strike. And Maverick, pretty big favorite here. So I think we started off with a fight that you can't, write off for DFS purposes. Talk to us, Mad Lab, about Cachueira and Maverick.
Yeah, she, Maverick's a girl who came into the UFC, and I was really high on her because I'm high on intelligence. When you're a young fighter like her, you can absorb a lot more. You can mold her a lot more. She's not like kind of jet set in her ways. She just doesn't. She makes bad decisions though. Like if you watch some of her fights, she does make bad decisions. Against Macy Barber, I believe that she won that fight. She started unraveling from there. You know what I mean? But the girl's got good wrestling. She's got farm girl strength. She was growing up. She was raised on a farm. She got very good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Doesn't really know how to tie it all together in that well. But she does make foolish decisions. And a girl like Priscilla Cachueira, you don't want to do that with. The price to me in DraftKings is kind of off. If I'm not lying, it's kind of I call it like a Reggie Jackson play. It's almost like you're going to hit a home run with Maverick, where even if she wins, her score is going to be horrible and she's going to shit the bed. So you got to be careful there. I'm not crazy about the price. I think there is some value on Cachueira. I'm expecting Maverick to more than likely pull it off, but it's a really high risk, high reward type of play for me, Maverick, this week.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll go to JSU next. I will say Maverick, in her her last 4 wins in the UFC, has scored pretty well. 119, 110, 99, and 110 in those 4 on an 11-fight card. 100 points, probably enough to get you there. I do think we could potentially see some high scores on this card overall, given that most of these fights are favored to finish inside the distance. Maverick obviously has the wrestling JSU to score well in DFS. And a big favorite as well. So I'm certainly not writing her off, even with the high price tag. What are your thoughts here on Maverick and Cachueira?
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about, oh, Maverick sucks. She can't be this big of a favorite after the last card and stuff like that. But she fought Jasmine, and that was a totally different fight than fighting Cachueira here. Jasmine was just pressure. Maverick doesn't like to be pressured. I think in this fight, she can pressure. She can get takedowns, whereas I thought Jasmine was better in almost all those areas last time. That's why I was on Jasmine, which like the whole world was on Maverick in that fight. And I'm like, oh, this is a lot closer, and the line shouldn't be this wide. I think that this line is still a little wide, but I believe it's definitely closer to what it should be because Miranda definitely has the big advantage, where she didn't have as big of advantage last time out against Jasmine, but people didn't see that. They thought she did.
Yep.
She clearly didn't. So for me, I have Maverick. I think for DFS too, Maverick is a good spend up for the reasons you gave, DC. I think she can get takedowns, some control time. I think it can score well, even in a decision. Maybe she gets a sub too, but I like Maverick here by decision.
Yeah, that's my pick as well. I do think this fight, I'm going to be targeting this fight. I think I'll be over the field, Drew, on both of these fighters. I think if Maverick wins, it's either an early finish or a finish inside the distance, in which case she scores well, or takedowns and a lot of control time. And then on the other side, Cachueira, if she pulls off the upset at 6,800, I think she's got a pretty good chance of ending up on the optimal. So I think I'm higher on this fight maybe than the field is. But what's the field doing with this fight, Drew? And then where are you going with Maverick and Cachueira?
Yeah, a good bit of ownership on Maverick here. I got her at 34% owned, and I have Cachueira at 16% owned. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, with the high upside, Maverick kind of grades out poorly, but we've talked about that in the past. Like a lot of it boils down to the takedowns and control time. So, I would pick Miranda to win. I do think the line should be closer. I just looking through the results, and I know strength of the competitor does differ, but like Priscilla's got some decent wins. And Mavericks had a handful of losses. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I'll probably be lighter on the fight just off of the other finishing upside in that 9K range. But yeah, 34.5% for Maverick, which is in line with most of the 9K fighters, just for reference.
Makes sense. That's Maverick and Cachueira. Let's move to the next fight on the card. Welterweight division here. Matthew Semelsberger and Uros Medic. It is Semelsberger, decent favorite, sitting around minus 210. Obviously, we're talking male fighters, not female, but I kind of think this one is a little bit similar, at least in the style of the fighters, to the first fight of the night. Semelsberger, more of the wrestler against Medic. Let's go over to you again, Mad Lab. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, he's a blue collar guy. Semelsberger. This is a guy who really he does lack skill. That's what people don't look at that much. The guy's a good athlete, but he's not a great tied together fighter as far as fundamentally sound and stuff like that. He does have good wrestling. He's got a lot of pop in his hands. He proved that against Jake Matthews when they fought. He knocked him down like 3 times. The problem I have with him, though, is exactly what I just said a minute ago, is he's not the greatest fighter. There are going to be guys out there that are going to be able to technically unwind him, and Medic is that type of guy. I know he's coming up in weight. I know that, he doesn't have the greatest gas tank. I know that, this is on short notice for him, but he's the far and away better striker. He's going to be faster, and who knows how that he's going to carry that weight. I don't even know if his power is going to translate up. I see too many people having. I think Semelsberger is probably the right side. If you're going dollar for dollar, but I think too many people are burying way too much into this guy. They got to understand that. Is he a good fighter? He's okay. Does he have good pop? Yes, but he's not really a technical fighter where this guy cannot get lost in translation, especially in the first round. You know what I mean? So I would be very, very careful here. I understand the past, what people think about Semelsberger, and I do tend to agree with him. But I think people are sleeping on Medic a little bit too much. And I think in the first 5 minutes is going to be a big, big telltale sign of how this fight's going to go.
Yeah, makes sense. Sounds like you think Medic has a chance at the upset here. 7,600 for Medic, 8,600 for Semelsberger. What do you see between these two fighters, JSU?
Yeah, and I mean, the gas tank's going to be a big thing. I think in Medic's last fight, that was the longest he's went in a fight in that second round, where he did finish, obviously, Morales, but that's the longest he's ever gone. So the gas tank is a question when we've seen Semelsberger's durability and toughness. That with altitude, obviously, is the big thing here. Now, I do think actually Medic is very live. I like him to win this fight. I think he is the much better and faster striker, like technically, like Mad Lab said. And those kicks, too, he's got really good. He sets up that head kick well. The corner, I'm pretty sure last time in that second, they were imploring him after the first round, throw the body kick. The body kick was killing Morales, and he did throw it out there. Like, this dude is very talented. Stand up, I think he's super live to get a finish here. But like Mad Lab said, if this gets into the third round, I'm going to be very worried, because that's when Semelsberger, I mean, you watch that fight against Moreno, I think it was, where Moreno was winning. His eye was pretty much completely shut. The doctors come in, they're like, well, how many fingers am I holding up? He probably just guessed one, really. Like, DC even made the comment, like, I think he just guessed one. He got the right number. He got in there. What does he do? He rushes forward on Moreno, throws a flying knee, drops him. Like, this dude, when he, is behind, he will make up for it and try and finish. So this is going to be a banger fight, I think. This is going to be a really good fight. And Medic at 7,600 for DraftKings, just because I like him. I think he's very live to finish. I'm going to be overweight on him. But Semelsberger is also, I think, a good spend if you like that side in DraftKings. So for DraftKings, good fight to target. I'm going to be over on Medic, though.
Got it. Medic over Semelsberger for JSU. Let's go over to Drew. What do you got for ownership on these two, and what's your pick for the fight?
Yeah, you guys are too sharp. I think Medic is live in this one. So for ownership, I got Semelsberger at 33% and Medic at 21%. And so Semelsberger, if it goes long, he does have finishing upside prior to that, but if it goes past round 2, obviously I think Semelsberger wins this. The interesting thing for me is when I started looking through some of the Vegas probabilities, Medic's round 1 KO is almost the same as Semelsberger. So I think Vegas has a little bit of respect for Medic potentially getting this via KO in round 1. So I would keep an eye on that. Like I said, after that, you start to see the difference go with Semelsberger winning via submission or knockout in round 2 and round 3. So I'm with Mad Lab and I'm with JSU. I think Medic is live as a dog, and I think it could happen via KO in round 1. If it doesn't and it goes past that, I think Semelsberger ends up winning the fight. It's just a matter of how well he scores. I think he'll score pretty well. Either one of these guys will score well in a win. But yeah, I'm going to side with Medic a little bit here, and Semelsberger is fine as well. But I think Medic's the guy that people will probably sleep on, just because that number looks quite a bit worse than maybe a few others around him in that high 7s.
It's also a public perception fight. Every card we have, I always say, we have 1 or 2 fights that people listen to one person, the entire field flocks to him, whether it's from Twitter, whether it's this is a public perception fight. Like when I ask people, what do you tell me? Like, give me the why. Why do you think Semelsberger is going to win? It's not Semelsberger. It's because Medic gasses out. Okay, but Medic gasses out. But what does he bring to the table? Why do you think he's going to outstrike Medic? What is he? It's always Medic gasses out. They're not bringing the why. So it's a big public perception fight. Like I said, Semelsberger more than likely has a better percentage chance of winning the fight, but I would not sleep on Medic. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, sounds like all 4 of us think Medic's got a decent chance to pull off the upset here, 7,600. I think if he does it, he'll have a pretty good chance to get on the winner at the end of the night. Move on to the next fight. One of the bigger favorites on the card is Jake Matthews, sitting minus 270 over Darius Flowers, making his official UFC debut for this fight. Obviously, we've seen quite a bit of Jake Matthews in the UFC. Hasn't scored particularly well, especially over his last 4 or 5 victories in the UFC's. Certainly expensive for DraftKings, 9,300. I think the 3rd or 4th highest priced fighter on this card. Back to you, Mad Lab. Matthews and Flowers making his UFC debut. What do you see between these 2 fighters?
Well, I honestly don't see much with Darius Flowers. I don't know what people are seeing this guy. Like, I've watched numerous amounts of film with him, and the guy's just not good. The guy's kind of like a bully. He comes in, he throws hands, he's got decent power. He's very, very small for this division. And people are predicating his performance and his possible mystique by him slamming somebody in the Contender Series and the fight stopping. Like, that's how this guy got his mystique. It's not even like he outworked him or caught him with a combination and knocked the guy out or something. It was basically that the fight was stopped because he slammed somebody kind of out cold, and everyone's like, wow, this guy's like King Kong. So this fight, to me, I love Matthews in this fight. I think Matthews basically has to weather that storm in the first minute or so from this guy. This guy's coming in on late notice. This guy has gas tank issues. This guy's fighting in elevation. Like, everything, he's smaller. Everything is lining up for Matthews. I think Matthews is in line for a second round sub or something in this fight. I don't see this fight going to the 3rd round. Unless Matthews really has like a mental breakdown like we've seen him have in the past. This is a fight where if he loses, then I'm Dana White. I'm probably getting rid of this kid then, because there's no hope for him. Like, he should not lose to this kid Flowers. You know what I mean? So I'm high on Matthews in this fight, finishing the fight.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Matthews does seem to, at least to me, kind of beat the guys he's supposed to beat. I don't think he's going to be, a guy that challenges for a title or anything like that. But in this one, JSU, I do think Matthews probably does enough to get the win. DFS-wise, though, that's another question. Does he do enough at 9,300 to get on the winner at the end of the night? I think that much is definitely up for debate. Interested to hear your thoughts between Matthews and Flowers, JSU.
Yeah, and I think what helps him is honestly the way Flowers fights, where he just kind of jumps into that. I agree with Mad Lab. I don't really see much about him to love. And that slam, he was in like a bad position, ended up catching him after that, slamming him down, and the dude's shoulder just went out. But like, he's just not that good. And I think Matthews, you said it perfectly, DC. He's like one of those guys. I mean, he loses to solid fighters, right? But he's going to beat the guys he should beat. And this, to me, feels like one of those matches where Flowers comes in, tries to bully him, and it doesn't work, and it ends quickly. So I'm with Mad Lab. I kind of agree that Matthews is a good target here for DFS. And I mean, I think he finishes this fight pretty quickly, just with the way Flowers likes to try and fight.
Yeah, my one worry with Matthews, correct me if I'm wrong, Mad Lab, maybe, but he's kind of a position submission over ground and pound type of fighter, which can lead to a lack of scoring, right? Even if you get the sub, if you're not doing a lot of damage. Is that how you see Matthews, or do you think he rains down the punches here?
No, the thing with him is the only issue I've had with Matthews in the past is I don't even say I know him. It sounds like I know him, but I've urged like for him to change camps. He's so set in his ways with his camp that they haven't been able to extract his stuff out of him. He's a very good grappler. He's tried to find his hands in the past, and I think that's where he's starting to get his chin checked. But when he gets on the ground, he's got two personalities. He can be a bully if he feels like he's got you crimped up against a cage. He could rain down punches, but he will definitely, without a doubt, this guy's going to look for a sub if he hits the ground. He's a little bit more submission before position, and that's where he could lose his way.
Sure.
Sometimes when you start throwing those hands, Mad Lab, you get one of those knockouts like the Fiala one. Like you start to love it a little bit too much, even though you're really good at something else. You fall in love with that again. You want to show that almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to you, Drew. What do you got for ownership between these two?
Yeah, I got Jake Matthews at 30% owned and Flowers at, we'll call it 14% owned. So yeah, I'm going to side with, I think Matthews is the guy. And I think he actually provides pretty good upside at his price, to be honest. So at 30%, he's 4, 5, 8% lower owned than some of the other 9K fighters. And he grades out second best for me in the 9K range. So yeah, I like Matthews quite a bit. I think Vegas just sees Flowers as staying on his feet or trying to stay on his feet for a knockout. But if Matthews avoids that, gets him on the ground, I think it's going to get over pretty quick. So Matthews will be my pick and be via submission.
Yeah, people are baking in too. People are baking in the whole thing with they see the highlights of him getting knocked down 3-4 times against Semelsberger. People are baking that in. Then they see this guy with all these finishes, and it's like, well, all right, here we go. This is what's going to happen to Matthews. So that's what I think is baked into a lot of the public perception here. And like I said, I think it's just a bad take.
Yeah, of course, every fight is different, so that makes sense. 4 for 4 on Matthews over Flowers. Let's get to the next one. I think we could see fireworks between these two, maybe an early finish on the feet. Claudio Ribeiro and Roman Kopylov. It is Kopylov that is moderate favorite, sitting around -200 to -220, depending on where you look. Back to you, Mad Lab. What do you see between Claudio and Roman?
Now, if these guys were fighting at sea level, if these guys were fighting no elevation, it'd be a lot better fight than it is. The reason why I'm thinking Kopylov is going to probably run away with this later in the fight is because he's just more economical. This guy throws his punches without too much effort. He's not looking to knock you out in every shot. He's looking to touch you, then open you up. And he's kind of a slow bleed, I call these fighters. Like he kind of just opens up gradually, where Ribeiro comes out of the gate, firing everything hard, loading up on everything quick, body shots, head shots, which means that he's not as economical, and playing in elevation, that's going to tax him when it comes to the cardio. So I think that the danger zone is almost similar to the first round for a guy like Flowers or something. Like he's going to come out and he's going to come out of the gates hot. And I think he's not going to understand how to really project the elevation. When elevation grabs you, what people don't understand is if you walk up a flight of stairs, halfway through the flight of stairs, you'll start panting, you'll start getting tired. You're getting tired. When elevation grabs you, it grabs you. DC, I don't have to tell you. You lived in elevation. You know what I mean? It kind of grabs you quick, especially when you're doing something physical. So I think that's what happens. This guy's going to come out. He's going to fight hard. He's going to load up and everything. And then come in the second round, elevation's going to grab him. And I think Kopylov is just going to start having that slow build. And he's going to probably, I'd say I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes him in like round 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, this fight, for those that don't know, in Salt Lake City, what is that, 4,000, 5,000 feet, I think, above sea level. And, we see, I think, at least the DFS sports that I play, we see elevation play a bigger factor, conditioning play a bigger factor than maybe any other sport. So certainly going to play a factor in these fights. JSU, your thoughts here, Kopylov and Ribeiro.
Yeah, this is an interesting fight because I agree with everything Mad Lab said. Like Ribeiro puts everything into even like his low kicks. Like he has super heavy low kicks, but he loads up on his punches. But when you're putting all into all your shots and stuff like that, you're gonna just naturally tire out. So 2 things could happen here. What Mad Lab said, where he throws it in round 1 and then Kopylov just 2 and 3, and he gets the finish in round 3, which I like a lot. I like that that bet, or maybe because Kopylov likes to touch and, move around and stuff, maybe he's kind of waiting, and it's a really boring fight because he's afraid to gas out.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to gas out too much because he also is trying to find that one punch lights out too when he does it. So I could see it being almost like staring, a little bit of a staring with Ribeiro, just trying to get that one punch knockout. Maybe he's a little worried about gassing out in the altitude. So I'm on Kopylov. I like the round 3 finish that Mad Lab said. I think that's a sharp take here because I do think, that the altitude's going to get to Ribeiro, and that's, going to ultimately be where Kopylov gets the finish in round 3. So that's where I'm at. For DFS, though, this is one of those fights I'm probably just going to be lower on at 9K for Kopylov. I just like other 9K fighters for DraftKings a little bit more. So I'm going to be lower on this fight.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is a weird one for me where I agree with you. I think Kopylov is the better pick to win this fight. I think he's the better bet. I like that round 3 finish. But I think Ribeiro, even though I think Kopylov's going to win, might be the better DFS play due to the pricing at 7,200. And I think if Ribeiro wins, it's early, right? Probably in round 1. And if that's the case at that price point, he's probably going to be a guy you need, where I think Kopylov could win in the way we maybe expect and not get to the optimal lineup at that 9K price tag. So a little bit of a kind of a, catch-22 between these two fighters for me.
And most people aren't playing 150 lineups, right, DC? So most people are playing, 5, 10, 20 lineups maybe, and you can't just play everyone. You know what I mean? You got a bunch of 9K fighters. You got to almost pick and choose. And like you said, for them, if you're playing 20 lineups and you like other 9K fighters, maybe it's more of a dog or pass type, even if you think Kopylov is the winner, just because you see a path to where, Ribeiro can get it done. So that's a good take.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to Drew for the ownership between these two.
Real quick, is one of us are getting feedback?
Yeah, someone's getting a text message, and Spencer in the chat said, to me, turn off.
Not me. It's not me.
It's not me. I was on mute.
I'm saying you don't hear this. You don't hear what I hear right now. It sounds like almost like rain.
No, who's getting rained? It's not me.
That might be a pipe here in my basement, to be honest. So I'll try to keep it on mute. But I was hearing the text myself.
I like that. There you go, Mom's basement. There you go.
Yeah. It's a little rough down here. I'll keep it on mute when I'm not talking. Let's go to.
I thought you were talking about the dinging from the phone, man.
So did I.
Yeah. You know what that is? That's not my phone. My phone is connected to my computer. So when and I don't. Okay. So that's what it is. It's me. Whoever's fucking bitching
you gotta turn that. You can turn that off in the settings.
How do you do it?
I'll show you after. Because I figured it out during the show when I was at my parents' house a couple weeks ago. I was like, what the hell? This stupid
people are complaining about it? Like it's a fucking war siren when you're watching a movie? It's a fucking thing, dude.
It's a text message.
Let's go.
If you're watching this, who's ever texting Mad Lab, cut it out so we don't.
They're gonna just do it more now.
Yeah, I know, right?
And
I might start texting them just to be a dick, just to keep the phone ding.
Yeah, testing. Just type in testing.
I'll tell you one thing. Draft Cheat is the grouchiest motherfucking texter, dude. You never know if he's in a good mood or bad mood. It's like Draft Cheat, yeah, like it's one word answers. It's like he's like the grouchiest fucking texter I ever seen.
We've all dated girls like that.
What do you mean? Our only text interactions is you telling me to send the link for the show.
Yeah, like it's not even like a fucking good morning, dude. It's just like the link.
Well, I don't get a good morning from you. You say, give me the link for the show.
Wait, Mad Lab's texting DC good morning? What the hell? I don't get no good morning text message.
What are you talking about? You don't even text back. I messaged you last night at 9 o'clock. You messaged me at 3 a.m.
Sounds like he's responding now.
When I messaged you, I was like, shit, it's 5:30 here. It's friggin' 2:30 his time. I was like, oh, damn it. My bad.
Next time you ask me for the link to the show, I'll be sure to write a paragraph asking how your week went, Mad Lab. Okay. Let's get over to Drew for get the show back on the rails. I believe we're still on the Kopylov.
We are.
Talk to us, Drew, about ownership for this.
Yeah, so Kopylov I have at 29% and Ribeiro at 19%. I think We've talked about this the last couple weeks. I think Ribeiro has a window to win this fight, possibly via KO in round 1. But I'm going to side with Kopylov. I think he's at least a better striker, and I don't think it scores as well as some of the other 9K fights to JSU's point. So I will be lower on Kopylov, even though I do think he wins this and probably inside the distance. I just think you have fighters right above him that probably grapple a little bit and maybe rack up the control time for a ceiling. So, yeah, I don't hate a little sprinkle at Ribeiro, but yeah, Kopylov, the more I look at it, I'll probably be pretty much off of him and just go higher on Bonfim and Matthews like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, sounds like we got a similar take on this one, Drew. Even though I think Kopylov is more likely to win, I do like Ribeiro a little bit better for DFS purposes. We'll keep it moving, though. Next fight on the card, CJ Vergara, -170 over Vinicius Salvador. Let's go back to you, Mad Lab. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, it's this is an interesting fight because I see there's a lot of people like Salvador in this spot, and a part of me gets it, but a part of me, like I said, I need to know the why, and the why just doesn't really fit like the narration for me. A lot of people are looking at this guy as a really long and rangy striker, which he is, but he's really not a good striker. That's the difference. Like, just because someone's a striker doesn't mean they're a good striker. He's got a really good bolo punch. That's like the one thing that he does. He's got a really good sneaky bolo punch. And he is dangerous, and Vergara is the guy, if you guys don't remember, he's the guy who was doing the fucking chicken dance around the cage like Rocky was chasing the chicken in the movie. But he showed durability. So we've seen that, like, he could be the hammer and he could be the nail. Where Salvador, we haven't really seen that fully yet. This is a really, really tough fight. The thing that kind of pulls me back a little bit more on Salvador is that he looked like fucking the old man from Poltergeist in weigh-ins. Like, he was drained, so that scares me a little bit, especially, like I said, you're dealing with the altitude and stuff like that, the elevation. So it's a fight I would think I'm going to target, because I do think there could possibly be a finish in this fight, whether it's Salvador early or Vergara late. It's without a doubt a targetable fight in DraftKings for me. I'm expecting this to be a really fun fight.
Yeah, it makes sense. Another fight that is favored to finish inside the distance. JSU, who do you got between Vergara and Salvador?
Before listen, chat, all right? We all know, someone's telling me not to tell Lab that I don't like pizza, but we all know I wasn't eating pizza in the lab at friggin' midnight or 3 a.m. or whatever.
Why? You don't
Lab,
like you don't eat pizza?
I don't eat pizza. I don't eat pizza. No. I haven't eaten pizza
Horrible.
since like 10 years old, I think.
What don't you like about pizza?
I'm not a big cheese guy. Like, I'm just not a big cheese guy. No. Yeah.
That's why you don't eat pizza, because you don't like cheese?
Yeah, I'm not a big cheese guy. Yeah.
Your
There's a lot of things that have cheese in it.
Yeah, I don't eat cheese. Like, a hamburger, not a cheeseburger. Like, if my mom makes, pasta, pasta and meatballs, no grated cheese, nothing like that. Nothing. I don't like cheese.
Are you lactose intolerant?
A little bit, yeah.
You got the shits when you eat the cheese?
Yep.
I can't believe
so
you
I just don't eat it.
Pizza, dude.
I don't think I've ever met someone else who doesn't like cheese other than JSU. So
don't like cheese. Yeah, haven't ate pizza since I was 10. It's just not something I eat. My wife eats it all the time. My wife
What about
loves
a grandma
pizza.
slice? What about the grandma slice with no cheese on it?
I haven't ate it. No, I just haven't ate it.
Fucking
I don't know
Christ.
what to tell you. Sorry. All right. Well, now Lab officially hates me, but there you go. So my worst take ever, right, Mad Lab? It's my worst take ever. Everyone
Pizza. I've never met anyone that doesn't. I've never met anyone that doesn't like pizza outside of, like, they think it's fattening.
We'll see what Drew can do to offend Mad Lab by the time the show's over. My texts apparently aren't good enough, and JSU doesn't like pizza. So Drew, it's got to be something for you before we get out of here.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a list.
Yeah.
Drew will think of something as we go, but I do think Vergara is just a better overall fighter here. I think that Rodriguez fight showed his toughness a few fights ago, where he took some big shots, and I just don't think Salvador is good enough and tough enough to handle what's going to come back his way. So Vergara for me, I want to take a dog here. I want to take a shot like in DFS at 7,500. He looks so bad on the scales. I'm probably just going to either be Vergara or pass in my lineups, but I get in DFS like wanting to take a shot in this fight because, like Mad Lab said, this could be a fun fight with a quick finish. So Vergara for me, I'm going to be, in on a little bit, but Salvador, I'm lower on. I don't think he's very good.
Makes sense. What do you got here, Drew, for ownership for Vergara and Salvador?
Yeah, I have Vergara at 29% and 23% for Salvador. The number looks pretty tight. 60. It's about a 60% implied win for Vergara, and Salvador's at 40%, we'll call it. So I'm a little bit lower on Vergara. It sounds like JSU is. So I'll probably be dog or pass on this fight. I just think at 8,700, the numbers don't look as good as some of the other fighters in that high 8s and low 9s. And I think Vergara will have to be the odd one out for me. Projects out the worst, but Salvador grades out decent as a dog, 7,500. I know we just talked about Ribeiro. But yeah, Salvador, 23% looks like he's going to be a pretty popular dog, but I don't mind it. I think he's got a decent chance to win, even if it goes the distance. So that's kind of my bet, is if it goes longer than 2 rounds, then he can maybe squeeze out 2 out of 3 rounds to win by decision.
Yeah, makes sense. We'll get to the next fight on the card. Got to give a shout out to Mr. Andy Wursel here, who is calling us all clueless in the chat, and yet is here spending his Saturday watching the show anyway. So yeah, really good decisions there, Mr. Andy Wursel.
I think he was coming at me with that take, but then he was saying that all I do is look at Vegas lines, which is, if anyone knows me, they know that I do not just look at any numbers for any sport, and they're absolutely off if they think I'm a numbers guy who just stares at numbers all day for any sport. It's actually the opposite, Andy, if anything else. But good luck next time. Keep listening.
What did he say? I don't understand. Where you guys?
He thinks we're clueless because we just look at Vegas lines. Talking about me and JSU, I guess. JSU doesn't look at them.
You know,
he was talking. Is
this a friend of yours?
Not anymore.
He says he only called JSU and Drew Kula, so I guess we're off the hook, Mad Lab.
You guys are good. You guys are good for this one. Wait until another take that you have, so someone can tell you suck too. For now, it's just me and Drew.
I don't get it.
Well, it's just grouchier than draft cheat. He's just grouchier than draft cheat.
Can we give people nicknames in this fucking thing?
Yeah, go for it. I don't care.
I'm gonna make one up for Andrew. Let's go.
If you think I'm grouchy, you try texting Andrew. I bet he's even worse. We'll move on to the next fight, a fight that is, I think, going to be popular for DFS. Big favorite to finish inside the distance, and it is Gabriel Bonfim, who is a big favorite, -340 over Trevin Giles. Let's get back to Mad Lab, who apparently knows what he's talking about. What do you got for Bonfim and Giles?
People are sleeping on Giles here, man. Giles is really a fighter that he's been underperforming, but the dude is talented. He knows how to control the rhythm and the tempo of a fight. That's where he's good. He does have the ability to kind of lull you into these situations that sells you a false sense of security. And then before you know it, you're kind of behind on the cards, with him, or, he's got you in an advantageous position. So, he's a very sneaky fighter. Bonfim there's 2 brothers now, so don't get it confused. This is the better one. This is the one that knows how to grapple. This is the much better Bonfim. He has shown that he is, he can finish fights early. He can do it by submission, by knockout. But this fight does scare me. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I'm leaning on the Bonfim side. And there's obviously more upside for him because this is a guy who kind of puts the steam ahead of everything. But Giles is a guy that if he drags you late, you could find yourself in a close fight, as that clock is starting to bleed. So a lot of people think this is like a shoe-in fight. I don't see it as a shoe-in fight. I think Giles can give him some friction here and make it interesting down the stretch. So I'm leaning Bonfim, but I definitely would not sleep on Giles here.
Yeah, it makes sense. Jesse, we'll get the numbers from Drew here in a minute, but based on the big favorite for Bonfim, the prices, the odds to finish inside the distance, this does seem like a good fight to be on one fighter or the other for most lineups, at least to me. What do you see between Bonfim and Giles here?
Yeah, I think for DFS, this is a great fight to target because Bonfim, he wants to pressure you almost into making mistakes. He's going to move forward. He's going to throw. Sometimes he overextends when he throws a little bit. Chin stays up a little. which is a worry, I guess. But he wants to really pressure you into making a mistake. We saw it in the fight last time where he pressured the guy into going for a takedown. He's put his neck right in there, caught it, rolled him over into, the guillotine, and it was over. And he jumps on submissions real fast. You'll see it in his fights. He finishes fights quick. And when he can jump on your back, your neck, different chokes, he's going to do it. And he'll finish that fight. He's done it a bunch. I think 11 of his 14 wins are by submission. So I like this fight to finish early. I think this is a great fight for DFS. I have Bonfim by submission, but Giles is live. I agree with Mad Lab. I think the way Bonfim fights, actually, Giles is definitely live because he's going to put the pressure on him to try and, go after him. He's going to go step right in the pocket, throw. And Giles, he has that jab. He can be dangerous. So this is a good fight. I think it finishes early.
Yeah, certainly the odds favorite to finish early on, Drew. I'm sure this one is going to be popular. Give us the numbers for Bonfim and Giles.
Yeah, I have Bonfim at 38%, so by far the highest owned outside of the main fight tonight. I got Giles at 11%. So, yeah, if you think Giles has a chance to win this, it doesn't take much to just match the field or go slightly over the field if you want at a 7K underdog. So, but yeah, Bonfim's my guy. Grades out extremely well, even at 38% owned. I mean, the inside the distance number is fantastic via submission. I mean, he's like 40% chance to win in round one. So 9,200 for Bonfim. I'll be well overweight the field, and that'll be my pick. I wasn't planning on playing any Giles, but it sounds like Mad Lab and JSU think he's live, so I might sprinkle in 10% and feel okay about myself as I go to sleep tonight.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I think I'll have a lot of this fight as well. Let's get to the pay-per-view card, the main card. Pretty awesome, I think, 5-fight card here to end it. Before we do, just a reminder, if you haven't yet, please hit the like button. It does help us bring you guys these shows completely free of charge each and every week. Hit the subscribe as well so you don't miss our content on the channel from all the different sports that we do over here at Run Pierce Sports. And if you do want to sign up, get the playbook, get Mad Lab thoughts, get all of our picks from the coordinators over on runpeersports.com. We do have a promo code running right now, Summer33. We'll get you 33% off your first monthly or weekly payment. Mad Lab, why don't you talk a little bit about your side and what you're bringing to the table for MMA?
Yeah, we got a big bet pack going this week. We have I think right now we have 7 to 8 bets in, wagers in. Between props, parlays, and stuff like that. We have a live Discord that we're doing early on, right before the fight. So, right after this, I got to do that live Discord where we kind of go through the wagers and we go through more DFS stuff. We have a special right now that you could jump on the site. There's no promo code involved. You just go to the site. But if you're going to join up, use the link in the RPS website. If you go there, you'll see there's a link. It gives them credit as an affiliate with us, and join. We have a really good week of fights. We're going to be sweating the Spence Crawford fight. We're going to be sweating the UFC 291 fight. So I'm going to have wagers in for all that stuff. So it's going to be hopefully a good night.
Awesome. All right, that's promo stuff out of the way. Let's get to
Andy Weasel. Get the fuck out of here. All right, you can make fun of me all you want. All right, that's fine, but stop talking like keyboard warrior. You're gonna fight everyone in chat. Like
Andy fucking Wurzel Schnitzel.
All right, we've given him enough publicity for one show. We'll keep.
You got JSU triggered off the pizza, then this guy shows up. JSU's having a bad day.
Fight! Say you're gonna fight me. Don't start fighting all in chat. Like, geez, at least then you have a chance.
Yeah, give me JSU over Mr. Andy Weasel any day of the week. Let's get to the main card though. Kevin Holland, Michael Chiesa, another fight that is kind of a clash of styles. Chiesa going to try to, I think, probably use his wrestling here. We know what Kevin Holland can do. Been very active in the UFC, kind of up and down, but obviously a very talented fighter. And this is another fight that is favored to finish inside the distance. I think a pretty fun fight to kick off the pay-per-view portion of this card. Back to you, Mad Lab. Kevin Holland, Michael Chiesa. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because it's like I wish I seen more of Chiesa. This is a guy who has taken time off. He's had back injuries. The problem I have with Chiesa in this spot is the guy's got kind of two lives now, right? He's a fighter and he's a broadcaster. So this is a guy who he knows he has a life outside of fighting. I know he's actually looking towards that way more now. I mean, his career is at the tail end. I know his family doesn't really want him fighting anymore. It's with the back thing, and he's holding out on his back surgery, believe it or not, until he's done. Daniel Cormier came out and had a discussion with him and said, listen, if you're going to continue to fight, wait for this back surgery until you retire. So he's kind of on the precipice right now of retirement. You know what I mean? He took a couple years off. He's probably only going to fight a couple times. Maybe he's stashing some chestnuts and stuff like that. But he does have the equalizer that we all know that Kevin Holland is susceptible to, and that's the wrestling.
Yep.
And the thing that it's crazy about Holland is the guy can grapple. A lot of people think that he's like a fish out of water on the ground. He's not. This guy can actually grapple. But if he feels like he's failing in his grappling, what he does is he accepts position. His ego kind of takes a hit, and he starts joking with you in the cage. And he just lays there and he's talking to the commentators, and he's talking instead of working, shrimping out and trying to get out. That's my issue with him. However, if you look at what he did to Derek Brunson was a bigger guy. Derek Brunson was able to take him down. But when he got up, every punch he threw stung Brunson. It was like one punch away from knocking him out. You know, so it's a tough fight. It's a timing fight for me. And I think as time goes on, Holland's takedown defense can only get better. It can't get fucking worse. You know what I mean? So I'm leaning on Holland here. But like I said, it's tough because I haven't seen enough of Chiesa, of how healthy he is, what he's been doing, how his cardio is going to hold up, how his timing on the shot's going to be. So I think it's a close fight. It could be a very evenly matched fight, but I'm slightly leaning to Holland. I think it is a good fight to target because I think it's either going to be a fight where Chiesa gets a lot of control time. That's where he wins. Yeah. He snatches up a submission. Or you got Holland who can knock him out, and Chiesa's susceptible to being submitted, even though he's a good wrestler. And Holland's got some nasty submissions in his belt. So it's a fight that I'm looking at possibly going under 2.5, like around that area. So I think it's definitely a good fight to target.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kevin Holland is plus 500 for submission, which I love in this fight because Chiesa is going to try and take him down. And we know Kevin Holland, like you said, his takedown defense, you know, it can't get much worse. So, like, it only can get a little better, but you know it should be the game plan for Chiesa. And that's where he can find himself in a position where maybe he flips positions and catches them in some type of nasty sub. So I think at those odds, plus 500, I think it's worth a stab, honestly. I mean, and I agree. I think for DFS, it's a good fight to target at the price tags, 8,400 and 7,800, because you're either getting the control time, like Mad Lab said, from Chiesa, or you're getting Kevin Holland finishing him. He could finish him, you know, obviously by knockout, but he could also finish him on the mat, which if you think he's going to get taken down, it's very possible that he could find his way into a submission there. So that's actually one of my favorite bets too.
That makes sense. I think the stuff you talked about, Mad Lab, with, you know, Chiesa perhaps kind of looking forward to the post-fight career in broadcasting, dealing with injury, putting off back surgery. Like, of course he's going to try to wrestle, right? He's not going to stand and bang with Kevin Holland. He's going to try to probably stay safe in this fight. And if that works, the wrestling could see him scoring well. But it is Holland who I think wins this fight in the end. Let's go to you, Drew. Holland, Chiesa, what do you see for ownership, and what's your pick for this fight?
Yeah, I got Holland at 28%. Or I'm sorry, 30%. And I have Chiesa at 23.5%. So, yeah, I mean, Vegas, honestly, it's a pretty close fight from a money line, but they definitely give the lean to Holland to finish inside the distance. And I think it's just because he's more well-rounded, I guess, on the feet or on the ground. To JSU's point, it looks like Chiesa would try to win this on the ground if he could, but Kevin Holland's just as good on the ground as he is on the feet. So I think Holland's my pick to win. I don't mind a little Chiesa, but I'll definitely side with Holland at 8,400. He kind of fills – I was tinkering with some lineups earlier, and he kind of fills a lot of holes in that low 8K range if you want to go that route. So, like, his inside the distance number is so good, 30% owned, I'll have a fair share.
Makes sense. That's Holland Chiesa, the first fight of the main card. Let's get to the next fight. I think kind of a funny one here between Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green. Both guys not performing particularly well in the UFC as of late. I've bet against and picked against Tony Ferguson in his last 5 fights. He's lost all of them. So I'm always excited to see Mr. Ferguson on the card, he's had quite the fall from grace, no question about it. And he is a big underdog here. Bobby Green, biggest favorite on this card, sitting minus 400 some places, minus 370, kind of depending on where you look. But Green himself, Mad Lab, has plenty of holes in his game, I think, especially in the fight IQ department. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because Ferguson looks just awful to me. But Bobby Green, on the other hand, I think is very beatable, and I'm not comfortable really laying minus 400 on Bobby Green against almost anybody who's in the professional fight game. So we'll throw it to you, Mad Lab. What do you see, Bobby Green and Tony Ferguson?
Yeah, it's the crazy thing about this is people looked back just not too long ago. Everybody looked at him as the boogeyman, right? This is a guy that nobody wanted to fight.
Right.
I mean, one of the highest fights that people wanted to see was Ferguson and Khabib just not too long ago. You know what I mean? And it was a fight that never happened. Like, who was getting injured? He was tripping over wires, getting injured and stuff like that. Now he's having this fall from grace. And people are saying, well, I've never seen anything like this. When's the last time you've seen something like this? I mean, I've never seen someone fall off a cliff that much. But what people aren't looking at is, the 5 fights that he lost. Let's just go through them real quick. He lost to Justin Gaethje. He lost to Chucky Olives. He lost to Beneil Dariush. He lost to Michael Chandler. So those 4 guys right there are the elite of the elite in the division. Okay, and then he lost to Nate Diaz. Okay, so is he losing? Yeah, he's losing, but he's losing to top level competition. And people forget when he did fight Gaethje, and they say he took his soul. He almost knocked Gaethje out in that fight. To be honest with you, he hit him with a really sneaky bolo punch, and he put Gaethje on skates. The thing that bothers me with this fight is his reaction time against Diaz looked really fucking slow. Like, it's just a reaction time for me. When guys fall off a cliff, it's for numerous reasons. Sometimes it's because of age. Sometimes it's because of damage. Sometimes it's because they're just mentally not there. He's got a wiring issue where his body's just not reacting anymore. And I think it's partial of the wars he's been in, but it's also just the way his mindset is outside of the cage. He's a very odd guy. He's got a big belief system in himself. This is a guy who thinks he's got 5 fights left in him and then he's going to fight for a title. I don't see it. But it's the speed that bothers me here with Bobby Green. Bobby Green is going to be so much faster. He's going to be so much sharper. He's going to be more elusive. He's going to get in. He's going to get out. The problem is with this fight with me is if you're giving Tony Ferguson 15 minutes, because Bobby Green's not a finisher, let's face it. I mean, he can finish fights, but overall he's not. When you're giving a guy that's like that unchained 15 minutes, there is a situation where he can roll into a knee bar or land some kind of crazy spinning back fist or something like that. But if you're telling me from mano a mano, like both guys just facing off talent-wise, who should win this fight? Bobby Green should win this fight 30-27 with maybe some kind of a mercy stoppage in the 3rd round. But there is a world where I do see Tony Ferguson giving him fucking issues because he is so unchained and he's someone that you can't train for. I'm going Bobby Green, but I'm going Bobby Green reluctantly. You know what I mean? And I think that price is a little steep for a guy who tends to go to the cards, and you got to kind of fight Ferguson a little cautious. You got to fight him almost like a rabid animal that you don't know what he's going to do next. So do I think he wins the fight? Yeah. Do I think he's like, am I going to be really high on him in DraftKings? I don't think so. Am I going to fade Ferguson? No, I'm going to have some minimal exposure to Ferguson because, like I said, there is that what if factor with him. He's still, at the end of the day, he's still El Cucuy.
Yeah, it makes sense. My problem with Ferguson, JSU, is he just throws all these unorthodox strikes. He's kind of submission attempts. And to me, in this run that he's had, where he's losing everything, they just don't look threatening at all, right? I just think like Bobby Green can avoid them, shrug them off. I mean, they've really done almost nothing. The kind of the unorthodox style of Ferguson, which kind of really made him in his heyday, I think is his downfall now. And he just doesn't, he can't let it go because that's kind of what brought him to what he is. And now it's, I think, a really, really overrated skill set with the way MMA has evolved. So I'm going Green here. I think he gets the finish. I think he puts a beating on Ferguson like most people have. But Mad Lab certainly makes good points with the level of competition for Ferguson. This is a step down, even I think from Nate Diaz, especially in the previous 4 fights before that. So interested to hear your thoughts, JSU, on Green and Ferguson.
Yeah, it's definitely a step down. And when you look at Bobby Green, are we looking at his loss like, okay, he lost to Drew Dober, he lost to Islam. Everyone's like, oh, okay, he lost to Islam. Islam dominated him. Okay, that's fine. Well, look at exactly Tony Ferguson, and Mad Lab laid it out perfectly. He's losing to the top tier, and then you can say the Nate Diaz fight, okay, he looked a little slower, a little off timing-wise, all that stuff. I agree 100%. Does Bobby Green beat Nate Diaz? I don't know. I don't know if he does. I don't think. Honestly, I think it's a very close fight, but I don't think he does. So, okay, Tony Ferguson to me is 6,700 on DraftKings. Bobby Green's 9,500. Bobby Green goes to the cards. You give Tony Ferguson, like Mad Lab said, 15 minutes at 6,700. I'll take my chances at 6,700 on DraftKings with some Tony Ferguson. I will not be playing Bobby Green at 9,500.
You're not going to play him at all?
No, I will not be.
I think you're going to fade him totally?
I'm going to fade him because I think all those other 9K guys that we talked about outside of Kopylov are better plays for DFS. I think Bonfim's a better play. I think who else did we talk about here? I think Miranda Maverick is a better play. I just think that they have higher upside, honestly. And the fact that Tony Ferguson, to me anyways, I think he's way more alive than people are even giving him credit for. He knocked down Michael Chandler in the first round. Everyone forgets this, and I know Michael Chandler's a friggin' beast. He ends up kicking him in the second round and just finishing it with that nasty kick. But he knocked his ass down. He hurt him. He was bleeding, everything. And then Michael Chandler explodes with this takedown, just absolutely nasty out of nowhere. And then finishes the round on top of him, hitting Tony with some nice shots. But Tony can still hit you. And the fact that Bobby Green has IQ issues, hands down, moves forward. Tony Ferguson can definitely catch Bobby Green. I don't care what anyone says. He's live. We see this every single week in MMA with DFS. Everyone's on one side, biggest favorite. No way the dog can win. He has no shot. Tony Ferguson as a dog is definitely live, and those odds are too wide. I'm not touching Bobby Green.
Are you picking Ferguson in this spot?
I am picking Ferguson.
You're picking him to win?
And I will be betting Ferguson, yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I would just say this. In defense of JSU, I will say this. And I don't do MMA math, but if you want to go down the line real quick, does Bobby Green? Let's all go around real quick. Does Bobby Green beat Justin Gaethje? No. Does Bobby Green beat Chucky Olives? No. Does Bobby Green beat Dariush? No. Does Bobby Green beat Chandler? No. Does Bobby Green beat Nate Diaz? I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you look at that resume too, he could very much well as be 5 in a row losses as well. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
It's
everyone's using it to hold it against Tony Ferguson, but if you flip it like you just did, flip it and do the same thing, and I think everyone comes to that conclusion. Maybe outside of the Nate Diaz, some people would be like he'd beat Nate. Some people would say Nate would win, and in the end, it might be 50-50. But even then, it's like okay, the line is too wide at that point, anyways.
Yeah, it's a bold call. Certainly, JSU going Ferguson over Bobby Green, biggest underdog on the card. But
JSU's just looking to make a little fucking splash.
Yeah,
you got to give a little splash here and there.
Yeah, but if you look at JSU's lineups, I guarantee he'll have a decent amount of Tony Ferguson.
Definitely, just like I had Paul Craig last week, we're gonna have some Tony Ferguson this week, baby.
I can't get behind it, but I do get the call on $6,700 Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
Drew, give us the numbers. How contrarian is JSU being with his Ferguson call here?
He can be more contrarian in other spots, but I'll give him that. It'll be 15% owned, so Ferguson will definitely be on the lower owned side. No surprise there. I have Bobby Green at 34%. I won't pick Ferguson to win. I think Bobby Green wins, but I won't be playing Bobby in DFS as well. I just think it's the same reason. There's more upside at guys lower. If Bobby Green goes through 2 or 3 rounds and gets a finish, I think I can get more guys in the high 8s and low 9s that get as equals or higher score. So that's the reason why I'm going to fade him. It's not because I think he's going to lose. It sounds like Ferguson should get a little bit more respect than Vegas has given him. But yeah, I think Green will be out for me, and I will try to allocate more towards Bonfim, Matthews, and Maverick, like JSU said.
Yeah, that's like if you're fading Green, that's what you hope for anyway. Forget about win, lose. You just hope that your 9K guys can outscore Bobby Green. So whether Bobby Green, knocks him out in the third round, but he only ends up scoring, 105, and the other guys score, 115, 120. Like that's what you want anyways. So you can still you can be on the other side of me, think Bobby Green's going to win like these guys do, but say I still have a chance at 9,500 that my other 9K guys outscore him. And that's for DFS how you should think. You don't have to think Tony's going to win to fade Bobby Green or to be under on Bobby Green.
No, it's a terrible sweat. It's a terrible sweat. You just sit there during round one. It's the longest round.
Yeah.
You know
what? That was a good hit.
What's crazy is my business partner, he like warned me all week this week, do not, because he knows I'm a diehard. I love her. He's one of my favorite fighters. And I'm going to be rooting for him from heaven to hell. But he's warned me. He's like, bro, please don't do it to yourself. Don't do it again. Don't pick Ferguson again. You know, and I try to say to him, like, the thing that makes him dangerous in fights like this is he's so fucking delusional, bro. Like, he really believes that he's going to win 5 in a row and get a title shot. Like, he's fucking delusional, this guy. You know what I mean? So that's what makes him dangerous. And you take that, and he's a black belt under Eddie Bravo under the 10th Planet system. That's nothing about just odd, awkward creativity. I don't know, man. Like I said, I agree with JSU as far as him being live. I do think he's live. It's just, you got to show me, dude. You got to get off the schneid before I pick you. You know?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. We'll see if Ferguson can pull off the upset. Next fight on the card, we do go to the heavyweight division, lone big boy fight on this card. Less of a big boy this time around, though. Derek Lewis looking newly svelte, 6-pack abs and all on the scale. The Black Beast, though, is the underdog. It is Rogerio de Lima, who's sitting around minus 180, minus 200. We've seen money, Mad Lab, come in on de Lima, since the odds were posted. It basically opened as a pick 'em. But, even with, Lewis losing some weight, it is de Lima that remains pretty big favorite here. This one is a massive favorite to finish inside the distance, sitting around minus 500 to finish inside the distance. So certainly fireworks expected between the two heavyweights. Really interesting fight here, I think, for a number of reasons. Let's go to you, Mad Lab de Lima and Derek Lewis. What's the pick here?
I think the odds for who should be favored is right. I think the odds are too wide, especially when you're dealing with someone like Derek Lewis. But I think de Lima should be the rightful favorite here. As crazy as it sounds, because you wouldn't be saying this 5 years ago. But the thing with Derek Lewis is he's got two predisposed positions that it's, I don't care how in shape you are. Your abs don't stop this. He's got a very, very soft midsection when it comes to taking damage. This is a guy where you could literally clip him in the stomach, and his midsection is extremely weak when it comes to taking shots. Doesn't mean that you're doing abs all of a sudden now, and now you all have got this midsection where you can take a crack to the stomach. That, and he doesn't check leg kicks, and de Lima throws nasty ass leg kicks. If there's one thing about him, he's got a nasty leg game. So if you could slow a guy like Derek Lewis down, who has to hold 260 pounds on his frame, on his legs, and you chip away at that one leg, he kind of ends up being a sitting duck, So, but on the flip side of the coin, you got Derek Lewis, who when he fought Alexander Volkov, everybody picked Volkov in that fight, and I put on the very bottom line, I'm picking Derek Lewis because all it takes is one. He got rinsed from pillar to post for 3 rounds, and with 5 seconds left, he landed one haymaker shot that knocked Volkov out, and it kind of flipped the whole DFS thing on its head. So that's what you expect from Derek Lewis. He's not going to go in there and outwork anybody. He's not going to take it down. He's not going to get side control or anything like that. He's just going to sit there and he's going to wait for that one fucking shot. So whenever he fights, I don't care who he fights, it's a coin flip fight. It's really what it is. So you can't have like a firm position on it, but skill for skill, I do think de Lima should be the guy that has many more pathways to get this done. But I don't care how many pathways you have to be really careful here. So I am leaning towards de Lima in this spot, but I'm evening out my exposure here, and I'm definitely gonna have a lot of exposure to this fight.
Yeah, I think this is a fight you do want exposure to. JSU. I agree with Mad Lab. I think de Lima has got more paths to victory. I will say that, there's no question Lewis has picked up some steam, right, with the weigh-in photos. I think that's going to honestly increase his ownership. Whether or not you think it should, I think is very much up for debate, but I think it will. Let's go to you, JSU. What do you have, de Lima and Derek Lewis here?
Listen, when you rock a 6-pack, it's a show thing. I mean, I guess it shows that he has been working hard because physically eating right, he's probably doing a little bit more of that because that's how you get something like that. So I guess it shows he's been more disciplined maybe in this camp and stuff like that. But I agree with Mad Lab that it's a fight you want to be exposed to. Someone asked earlier in chat, like, which fight should I target? Which is a good fight to target for DFS? This is definitely a good fight to target for DFS. I think someone's going out. Like, Derek Lewis wants to get in the pocket and trade. If someone backs him up, fine. He'll get against, and then he'll just start swinging. And De Lima, he'll swing too. So this is a fight I think finishes real early. De Lima has those nasty low kicks that set up. He tries to get you off balance. He throws a super heavy low kick, gets you off balance, and then starts moving forward with, heavy punches. I think, first round KO. I'm going to lean the Lewis side, but I agree with Mad Lab. I don't think there's like I think this is a very, very close or closer fight than people will talk through. And just because of the weigh-ins or how he looked, yeah, that makes me feel a little better, but that's not like I give Derek Lewis a shot whenever he gets in there because he's always got a puncher shot to knock someone's lights out. I mean, this dude's got the ultimate power, and we know that. So going to be a fun fight for DFS, and I'm going to be overweight on both these guys. A little higher, though, on Lewis just because of the price difference, too. 7,700 for a DFS lineup. So I'll be in on this fight.
Makes sense. Drew, I'm assuming both these fighters are fairly highly owned, and I'm guessing the ownership is somewhat even as well, given the price discrepancy. But talk to us, ownership and your pick between De Lima and Lewis.
Yeah, I still have Lewis quite a bit lower owned than Rogerio De Lima, and like you said, maybe it starts climbing. I got him at 19%, and I have De Lima at 36%.
Wow.
Yeah, where do you have him at, Matt?
I got 23% for Lewis, and I have 32% for Marco.
Okay. Not that far off. Yeah.
But 36% is a lot. That's a lot.
I think the inside the distance number 8,500 draws people to him. Honestly, his projection across the industry is pretty high. He's the I think third highest projected fighter. So for that reason, I do think Lewis is like the best leverage spot, and we'll just call it 20%. I mean, if you can get him, above the field a little bit, Derek Lewis at 7,700 with a knockout, absolutely going to be in the optimal lineup. So
now,
Lewis.
Is there a part of you guys that think this? Like, you got to think it. Do you remember when Francis fought Derek Lewis, and it was like there was just a no-brainer that this thing was ending in a murder and it just ended up going to the fucking cards.
Wasn't that like one of the worst heavyweight fights ever?
It was the worst. But what happened? Like, do you think like there might be a world where these guys like respect each other? Like, he respects his leg kicks too much, so he kind of stays back. He respects his power, and it's just like a fucking draw fest. Like, just like
I'm not saying that's going to happen but I've long had the take in UFC. Anytime that like the field is like dead certain that this one's going to finish inside the distance.
Yeah.
I'll take a big number on the decision. I'll go the other way too. If people are so certain it's going to be a decision, I like getting the big plus number on kind of the opposite of what the public thinks.
I guess I could see it. I could see it happening. I get what DC's saying too. It's definitely possible. Man, in altitude too, you don't know. Maybe both these guys like gas out and it makes it through round one, and then they're both just too exhausted to, finish the other or something like that. It's possible. I don't know.
Obviously anything can happen in the fight game, but I think that's a fair point. Let's get to the co-main event, though. Light heavyweight bout here. Another, I think, very, very interesting fight. Jan Blachowicz and Alex Pereira making his UFC light heavyweight debut. Obviously had the two fights with Adesanya. Got knocked out in the last one. He moves up here to fight Blachowicz, who beat Adesanya in the light heavyweight division. So I think an interesting one here. Mad Lab, I did notice Pereira, you could see the difference, the 20-pound weight difference that you need to cut down to. He looked way different on the scale at 205 than he did at 185. Just obviously not as, strung out's not the right word, but just not as skinny as he normally does. I saw he was already back up to 228 pounds last night, I believe. And certainly on the scales, even though Pereira moving up a weight class looked like the much bigger guy than Blachowicz, kind of in the face-off or whatever. So This one, though, by the odds, is as close to a true coin flip as you're going to get. An exciting one, I think, where, in my opinion, it could go either way. But let's throw it to you, Madlav. Alex Pereira, Jan Blachowicz. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, this is where public perception really like baked in a lot. When you look back a couple months ago, where are all the people that were saying like Alex Pereira is going to murder Izzy? He's the new beast. When he goes up to light heavyweight, he's going to murder everybody. Now they gave him Jan Blachowicz, who's 40 years old, who's good. But I mean, it's actually like that's the first matchup you want to see him at 205. And majority of the people I see, at least in talking to, they're on Jan. And I think, like I said, this public perception is baked in with Jan that, listen, I think he's a good fighter. I think he's a solid fighter. I think he's obviously a very good grappler. But if you look at it like his last, I think 7 to 9 fights, I think he's got 3 takedowns. All 3 of them are against Izzy. Okay, that's number one. Number two, this Polish power thing is completely blown out of proportion. It's actually ridiculous that whoever labeled him this Polish power thing, it blows me away. Because if you look at forget about let's go back to before they started calling him Polish power. His knockout was in 2014. That was his first knockout before Polish power. Then he knocks out Luke Rockhold, who's been knocked out 5 of 6 times. Okay, that's where he got Polish power. Then he knocks out Corey Anderson, who's another guy who's chinny, who was knocked out 4 of 6 times. Then the one good knockout he has on his record was Dominic Reyes, but Dominic Reyes wasn't Dominic Reyes anymore after the fight with John Jones. So like that's where he gained this whole Polish power thing, and I don't see it, I don't get it, I don't understand it. Any light heavyweight's going to hit with power, but he doesn't have this like mythical power that everyone's like labeling this legendary Polish power. It's a complete farce. You know what I mean? The other thing is with Izzy, people are taking that and they're baking it into this fight. They're saying, well, he was able to take down Izzy. Izzy beat Pieta, and this is the way it's going to go. It's going to go the same way. But they don't understand is Izzy weighed in at 2. He weighed in 5 pounds under the limit at 205, which means that he came in to the cage probably around 203, 204 max. He didn't even hit the weight limit when he hit the cage. You're dealing with a guy, Pieta, now who is coming in. He probably walks around 235, 240. Yep. You know what I mean? So think about that weight cut down to 185. I mean, that's a fucking insane weight cut. So now he's sitting at 205. He's going to come into the cage probably 235 by fight time. He's going to be bigger than Jan. Jan's not going to have that ability to take him down as easy as he did. Forget about taking him down. It's just wrapping a waist, wrapping a more frail person, wrapping a thinner person. You can get your arms around him quicker. And he didn't have to worry about that diamond power of Izzy. You know what I mean? And coming in at 205 now, 230, this guy's gonna have all his power. He's obviously working with Glover Teixeira, with a lot of different things. He probably is not going to be able to elude all the takedowns. But I like Alex Pieta here. I think this is his time to win this fight. I think that this is if he wins this fight, they're going to have a lot of room to have some really good fights. You have Alexander Rakic coming back. You got these big dynamic strikers that are in the game. Now where you can have some really exciting fights. I think he knocks Jan out. I think at some point in time he finds his chin, and ends up knocking him out. Probably maybe like midway second round or possibly even like beginning of the third. I think if Jan does get him down, yeah, he's in trouble. He's definitely, especially if this is the path that he takes right out of the gate. But if he decides to even stand and trade with Pieta for one round. Within those 5 minutes, I think he finds the chin.
I'm with you, Madlab. I think Pereira finishes this one early. I think it's a first round or maybe second round KO. I just think the power difference, the speed difference, the weight cut thing. Some fighters, right? They take a knockout as vicious as Pereira took their next fight back. You're worried about him. I'm personally not worried about the mentality for Pereira at all. I think he'll bounce back just fine from that. And yeah, JSU, I think Pereira takes this one rather easily over Jan, but the odds say differently, of course, with this one being a coin flip fight. What's your pick here, JSU, Blachowicz, and Pereira?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'll make it 3 for 3. I agree. The power, the speed, all on Pereira's side. And, Jan, everyone's saying with Jan about, the takedowns, the wrestling, the grappling. Like, if he gets him down, blah, blah, blah. And I thought Madlab made the best point. In the last 9 fights, he's only had 3 of them, and they were all against Izzy. So can he do that? He makes the point about the weight. It's a big difference when you got a guy like Izzy who's coming in underweight. You got a guy like Pereira who's clearly going to be the bigger guy for sure when they step into that cage. So I'm with you guys. I think this is Pereira. I think for DFS, it's a great fight to target at 8K, especially if you like Pereira like KO, or if you think you're on the Jan side and you like Jan because you think he's going to grapple and you think he's going to, implement that type of strategy, then he'll score well too if he gets, multiple takedowns and finds a finish at some point. So, yeah, for DFS, you want to be over, on these. I think the next two fights, I don't know what you guys' opinions are for DFS. Like when I see fights like this that are priced in line with these next two, this fight and the next fight we're going to talk about, where you got like 8K fights ish, and you can see like a finish clear. Do you guys just pick one guy and kind of like lock in unless it's like 150?
Well, no. Like especially in a fight like this where there's a clear hole that Jan can expose. You know what I mean? Yep. So like if you look, there was pictures of fucking I think we talked about this on the first show I was on with you guys. Remember I said all black belts aren't created equal, like the belt system is flawed. Did you see the video of Pieta with a brown belt?
Yes, I saw that, and I saw your tweet.
A fucking brown belt. Like really think about it. I mean, the guy's got a whole. So he's got a clear path to win this fight. So no, I'm definitely gonna have exposure to Jan. I think you'd be crazy not to have exposure to Jan. But I'm gonna have a heavier lean on Pieta. That's just my take.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's fair. I'm probably with you. I'm gonna be heavier on Pereira, but I mean, I definitely think pick your side. Be overweight on that side. You can still sprinkle in the other side if you want, but I'm probably going to lock this fight and the next fight in all my lineups.
Yeah, it makes sense. Should be a good one between Pereira and Jan. Let's go to you, Drew. Between these two, what do you have for ownership? I assume it's somewhat close, but curious what you got for the numbers.
Yeah, I got on 24% for Jan and Pereira at 26.5%. So really pretty close. I'll keep this one quick. I mean, it's as much of a coin flip as I can find in any of the last couple of months. So I do side slightly with Pereira. He grades out a little bit better. And it sounds like Mad Lab and JSU kind of back that up. And I think you as well, DC. So yeah, I'll side with Pereira. I think you do. I think you should have both sides of this in your exposures, maybe cap it. And then see which one you get a little bit more of and maybe bump up the guy that's the least amount and just try to get closer to 20%. So that's kind of where I see it. I see like 25% for each fighter as being optimal, and it can certainly be higher than that if you want to take one side over the other. I will take Pereira and then have some Jan to hedge a little bit. It's such a good fight at the price, good finishing upside, and should be active.
Absolutely. That's a co-main event. Let's get to the main event, a rematch from a while ago between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. The BMF belt back up for grabs between these two obviously very, very exciting fighters. I'm looking forward to this one. I think everybody is. It is Poirier who's a slight favorite, sitting around minus 150. Curious to hear your thoughts, Mad Lab, on Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Should be a great fight between these two. Go ahead, Mad Lab.
Yeah, I usually don't like going back more than 3 to 5 fights when it comes to like these guys. Like usually 3 fights is where I sit. 5 is my max. So I had to change my process a little bit with this. So, I didn't want to go back and watch the first fight and be like, well, that's the way it went. This is the way it's going to go. They had 5-year gap. Yeah, that's a lot. You know what I mean? Some good and bad. You got to remember there's good in that because they do graduate and become better, but they also took 5 more years of damage. You know what I mean? So you got to factor all that in. But what I did was I went back, I watched the fight a couple times again, and then I watched their fights up, leading up to this point to see what are they doing the same or what are they doing different. And it's clear to me that Justin Gaethje has done more things differently as far as like from the eye test. You can see he's a little bit more composed. He's he's concentrating a little bit more on his defense. But the things that he does the same on the pro end is he's still got those nasty leg kicks. His boxing's a little tighter. He's still without it. You can't take that dog out of somebody. You know what I mean? Like once the fire gets high, you're always going to go back to who you were. So he's always going to get baited into the war, no matter how disciplined he is, depending on who's there. The one thing that he does wrong that really exposed him in that fight was his defense. If you look at his defense, when he covers up, he's not looking. He doesn't look at what he's doing. He kind of puts his head down and he waits for the barrage to be over. Mm-hmm. And if you watch the first fight, what Poirier did in that fight. I think it was in the third round. He kind of stuck him with 9 jabs in a row, 8 to 9, and he wasn't doing it for damage. He was kind of just knocking at his door, waiting for him to open up. He came up with an uppercut, came over with overhand left, and he stunned him. That's the one thing that it scares me in this fight for Justin Gaethje, is that he does it too much of a peekaboo. If you remember George Foreman in his older age, he used to block like this. And it worked for him when he was fighting heavyweights because they were always coming over the top like this. And then he fought Holyfield. And Holyfield was able to kind of come straight and penetrate his guard and come underneath. That's kind of what Poirier does to him. Now, the thing with Poirier is we've seen that his leg checking ability hasn't been that great. You know what I mean? Even with Jimmy Miller, when he fought Jimmy Miller back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Jimmy Miller had one leg kick to go to finish him, and he didn't read it, and he never threw it, and Poirier ended up winning the fight. But Jimmy Miller had him dead to rights with one kick to go. So that scares me here. I think the fight, though, is going to really just boil down to the same thing. They're going to start off a little bit more cautious than they did the first fight. They understand each other's wireframe, and then what's going to happen is one of them's going to hurt one of them. The other one's going to want to get it back. The other one's going to it's going to be a back and forth, but ultimately the boxing of Dustin Poirier just gets better and better and better as the fight goes on. And I think he's going to end up starting just like the first fight, lose Justin Gaethje in translation. And I don't think you're going to be able to put Gaethje out, but I think the fight's going to get stopped. So I think it'll be like a TKO on Justin Gaethje for Poirier, probably around the same time. Like I would say probably around the 4th round, between the 4th and 5th round. I think this fight, it gets called quits.
Yeah, Poirier, the pick for Mad Lab. I'll go with Poirier too. I just think he is slightly the better fighter between these two, but I certainly expect a close fight, JSU. And I think, no question, both these fighters are going to have their moments at least early on, but I do favor Poirier myself. What's your pick, JSU? Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. It's
funny, when listening to Mad Lab's breakdown, I was for sure when he was breaking down everything, he was going to say Gaethje at the end of it because he said a lot of good things about Gaethje. He talked about how he's the more improved fighter. He did give a good case for Gaethje, but I think that just shows how close this fight is and how really, both these fighters are so good and they're so even. There's just a great fight. It's going to be a great fight to watch. It's probably going to end up being a war at some point because Gaethje just can't help himself. Mm-hmm. He always gets in the war and stuff. I'm going to lean the Gaethje side. I just, again, little things to me, but when you watch even the Fiziev fight, I thought in round 1, Gaethje didn't look that great. I thought Fiziev kind of gave it to him a little bit in round 1. I thought in rounds 2 and 3, though, he fixed a lot of things during the fight where his corner was telling him, hey, you got to shorten up on those hooks a little bit. You know what I mean? And he fixed things during the fight. He found his range. He made it work. The leg kicks. He hurt Fiziev with the leg. His leg, one of his legs was compromised. He did a bunch of things. And then in the 3rd round, he starts all of a sudden throwing a jab. And just all of a sudden, out of the blue, he just starts hammering the jab. And he just poured it on Fiziev and just mangled his face with that jab and those uppercuts. And those were things he wasn't doing in round 1. Then all of a sudden, round 2, he switches something. In round 3, I just think the improvement that I've seen for Gaethje is just a little more than what I've seen for Poirier. And that's why I'm going to lean the Gaethje side. But again, very close fight. And I will be overweight for DFS and very, very intently watching this final fight.
Yeah, should be an awesome one. Should be a war, I think. Drew, I assume these will be 2 of the highest owned fighters on this card. What do you got for the numbers, and what's your pick between Gaethje and Dustin Poirier?
Yeah, I have Poirier at 42% and Gaethje at 32%. So, it's a really close fight. So I think Poirier will be the guy that I side with. I think I'll have exposure to both sides, but Poirier does look like as you extend the fight, Vegas gives him a little bit more in terms of their likelihood for him to finish the fight. So yeah, Poirier will be my pick to win, 8,300, but I will certainly have some Gaethje to offset that a bit.
Makes sense. That's all 11 fights here on UFC 291. Should be a really fun card. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you haven't done so yet, do hit the like button on your way out. Hit subscribe.
DC, before we get out of here real quick, I don't want to jump in, but Mad Lab's got to give his his take on the big match tonight, the boxing match tonight. He's got to give his quick take.
I mean, from a betting perspective, I probably would tell you guys to stay away from it. You know what I mean? But I'm a huge Spence guy, man. I've been watching him since the amateurs, it's really a great fight. I mean, you got a guy in Spence. He's going to be bigger. He's going to have more power. And what this guy does is he burrows on the inside so well, and he just has nasty body combinations, head to body. Crawford on the other side is that imposing will going to work on a guy who's probably the most cerebral fighter that I've seen since Sugar Ray Leonard, and that's not being sarcastic. He is so smart in the ring, and he fights both ways. He knows how to switch on. He knows how to switch off. He's got power himself. We've seen both of these guys get chins get checked at a certain point in time. You got to be a little concerned with Spence's car accident. If that took a little bit out of him. It's such a tough fight. It really is a game of like centimeters with this fight. I'm going to lean Spence by a hair just for the mere fact that I'm such a big Spence guy. I love, Errol Spence. I'm going to be rooting for him. So on a 50-50 fight, I'm going to lean with the guy I want. But I mean, I wouldn't hate anybody that just stayed away from this fight and just enjoyed two great combatants going at it.
Yeah, Tyler in the chat says Spence unanimous decision. So there's one chatter on Spence. And for DFS Spencer, I don't stack fights, so can both be optimal. I think you're talking about the Poirier Gaethje fight.
A lot of people are saying this fight's going to go to the cards. I don't see it.
I think it's a stoppage like a TKO stoppage. I don't think anyone goes cold out, but I think it's a stoppage. But I don't know if anyone stacks fights. I know in cash, a lot of people will stack these type of fights, like the 5
But they'll
round.
do like cheap fighters that go to the cards. And it'll be like, a 7K fighter that likely goes 5 rounds and gets enough points, 70 points or 60 points with whatever. So
I think some people think this fight could go to the distance, and at those mid price ranges, could enough volume from both guys get you there? I don't know if you can get there. I don't think so. Not from both guys.
Yeah, makes sense. And that is, of course, UFC 291 wrapping up here. Fun card tonight. Looks like tournaments on DraftKings are getting pretty close to full, so jump in there now if you do want to get in on the DFS action. We'll be back same time, same place next week for Mad Lab, for JSU, for Drew Redkachik. I'm Draft Cheat, and we will check you next time.
Later.